Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day as we finish this 28th week of ordinary time. We ask that we may be glorified in your name, that we may serve you so that all may come to know of the greatness of your love. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Well, we're continuing through Romans, and we are getting into the concept that we talked about yesterday. This is something that's very strong in Paul. And Paul is talking about that difference, as I was saying yesterday, between grace and works. And again, it's something that's very misunderstood in the Catholic Church. There's two extremes. And one extreme is what many people say Catholics do, which some Catholics do, and it's wrong. And that is they do good works so that they will get to heaven. I always explain that is like the Starkist tuna commercial. If you remember Starkist tuna, they had Charlie the tuna, and he would always try to show Starkist that he had good taste. And the little assistant he used to have there used to come out and say, Starkist is not looking for tuna with good taste, but they're looking for tuna that tastes good. Well, in that sense, there are people who are always trying to prove God they're doing good works. And hopefully, if they do enough good works, they're going to get to heaven. And so they put that's what they're doing. That is not Catholic teaching, but a lot of people have understood it's Catholic teaching. And they also believe that they have to avoid sin, which obviously we have to avoid sin, but let me explain that in a second. They have to avoid sin so that they will not be condemned into hell for committing that sin. And I know there's people listening to me right now. It says, well, the church does teach that. The church teaches a very more profound understanding than that simple understanding. So in both cases, you have people who are trying to do good things and trying to avoid bad things so that they will get into heaven. However, what we're really called to do, so the other extreme is there are many Christians who may be listening who believe this, Catholics do not, and that is, once I am baptized, I am saved. Once saved, always saved. And therefore, people who believe that once they are baptized or they do the sinner's prayer, that they are saved and they can never lose their salvation. And so you have those two extremes. And this is what Paul he's not addressing that. This is a concept that led to those two extremes is what he is addressing. Paul is talking about Abraham, who we talked about several weeks ago. And Abraham, as he says, he listened to God, he did what God asked, he respected God, did what God said, and this was given to him as a sign of God's favor, okay? And so therefore, because he believed in God and acted on that belief, this is something that played in his favor. One example of this, obviously there were several examples in his life, but one example we can give is the whole story of the sacrifice of Isaac. Last thing he ever wanted to do was sacrifice his son, but he trusted in the Lord that much that he sacrificed his son. He started to, and the Lord stopped him and said, you don't have to go any further. You've proven your point, but understand from here on in, there will be no human sacrifice in this religion that he is using Abraham to found. You have to understand that at the time, human sacrifice was very common in paganism. So that's a very powerful moment. And so he is acting in righteousness. His righteousness is recognized by his obedience and his believing in God. However, so we understand that. And that's how, by living our faith in a way that demonstrates that we believe in God, we are acting in a way that is building upon our relationship with God. Do you understand that? Now, some people will say, we're going to that one of the extremes, that we have to do good things in order to get to heaven. Here's the problem with that, and this is something I say all along. There doesn't have to be any faith there. And this is something I always say. You've heard me say it many times. You can be an atheist and believe in Catholic morality. It's a real problem in our church. You can be an atheist and believe in Catholic morality. And that's, so therefore there is no belief there, but you're doing the right thing. But the Lord wants us to have our belief influence our actions. And so therefore it begins with our belief. This is what happened with Abraham. His belief influenced his actions. And so our belief influences our actions, and those two things come together. Now, if on the other hand, we believe that once saved, always saved, so if you're baptized, it doesn't matter what you do, you are still saved. Again, your belief is not influencing your actions. And so this is the combination that St. Paul is trying to help people to understand. We'll talk more on the other side of the break. We'll be right back right after this. You're listening.
Don't forget to tell others where they can find our program. You can hear us on WEZE 590 AM and WEZEradio.com at midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, Eastern Time. We then podcast the program on your favorite podcast platform and at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also hear us on our parish website, ST for StAnthonyAlston.org. That's StAnthonyAlston.org. And let others know where they can find us and spread the word and subscribe to our podcast.
We're back. And so we're talking about this powerful understanding that we are not saved by works. We're saved by faith, and our faith demonstrates our works. So Paul is talking about Abraham. Because Abraham believed in God, he acted in a certain way, and that illustrated his belief in God. Okay, so he had total trust, total belief in God, even when he was asked to do something that he didn't want to do. Okay, and eventually he's still total trust, total belief in God. And this was the beginning of Abraham. And this is what St. Paul is trying to illustrate. So our faith influences our works. And if we believe in faith without works, then our faith influences nothing, and then it really isn't anything. And that's why St. James says it's dead. But remember, our works, we can do good works and not believe in God at all. And we're called to believe in God and let that influence our works. And so our works are not influenced by God, they're influenced by whatever. So we go into, for example, St. John, he talks about if you love God, you will keep his commandments. So as Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So how do we demonstrate our love? By keeping his commandments. And this is an important distinction. And it's something that's really important for us to understand. And it's something I think for Catholics to really understand as well. And that is, people say, well, I'm Catholic. Well, that's fine. You're baptized Catholic. You're part of the Catholic Church. You may go to church on Sunday and everything else. But we also understand that our faith is called to influence our works. And when it doesn't, then we really, even though we may say we're Catholic, when we stand before the Lord, he will say, actually not. And can I give you an example of that? Sure. I've used it many times before. Many people who are ex-Catholics, ran the Nazi Party. Classic example. Now, granted, they may say they were ex-Catholics, but they also ran the Nazi Party. So if someone says, well, you must be Catholic because you were baptized Catholic, others people can say, but their faith is dead because their works demonstrate they have no love for God. It's a very important thing. So our faith must influence our works. But one of the things we also need to be careful of is our faith influences our works. Our faith does not influence someone else's works. And this is a major difficulty we have in the church. So, for example, if I say I believe in God and I act on it, that's one thing. If I say, I believe in God, and because I believe in God and I say God is real, then we have to make a certain rule in the country because of my belief in God. that's going to be a very hard sell to the rest of the population, because they may say, no, you can't believe you can't force us to be like this. And that's always a contention. I can give you a better example of that, and that is the case of physics. I believe in the laws of physics. Therefore, no one should be driving cars, because cars are dangerous and you can't drive a car within the concept of the law of physics. So I decided to become the governor of Massachusetts and make a rule that no longer are cars allowed in Massachusetts. Obviously, I'd have to work through the legislature. And people would look at me and say, what are you talking about? What are you, crazy? Why are you saying that? But I have a belief that is absolutely true, but I'm trying to force it on others. And that's never going to work. And that's why we got to be careful that our faith has to influence our works. If we try to use our faith to force it on others, you're going to get resistance that's going to cause a lot of problems. And that's what's going on in our country right now. Anyway, we will talk next week, but in the meantime, have yourself a blessed week. Remember, we are here every single Monday through Friday on WROL. See you next week.
I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you would like to support our program, please consider a donation to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. There are several ways to consider this. One is to purchase any of our merchandise, which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. There are coffee mugs there. There's also my latest book, Encounter Christ in Your Humanity, all of which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also donate to the show directly through either the Donate tab, also at CatholicAudiomedia.com, or by sending a donation through the U.S. Postal Service with your questions and comments at 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's St. Anthony Parish, 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. Finally, the best way you can support our parish is to attend Mass on Sundays at 10 o'clock and be a part of our parish. We thank you for any support you would like to give to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts, the sponsoring parish for this media outreach to Catholics and other Christians in the WROL, WEZE, and podcast listening audience. In Cristo vivimos.